After almost 60 years of strong bipartisan support, Congress has cut all federal funding for public media, stripping away a critical pillar of support for local stations like ours. At Vermont Public, we'll lose at least $2 million this year. If all our sustaining members increase their gift by $7 per month, we'll close that gap for good. Increase your gift today and help close the gap at vermontpublic.org/update.
From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Friday, September 12th, and here are today's headlines. Secretary of State Sarah Copeland-Hanzis is refusing to comply with the Trump administration request to turn over Vermont's voter database. The Department of Justice asked for this information earlier this week. It includes a person's driver's license number and the last 4 digits of their Social Security number. Copeland-Hanzis says the feds are looking for ways to prove a large number of non-citizens are voting illegally. But she says audits have shown there's virtually no voter fraud in Vermont.
And what we find, 9 times out of 10 is that it was a case of simple human error and that it wasn't actually somebody trying to vote fraudulently.
Copeland-Hanzis says sharing voter data would violate state law. She says the Vermont Attorney General's office is preparing a formal reply to the Trump administration's request. Chittenden County's tight rental market is starting to relax. The rental vacancy rate in Vermont's most populous county had hovered below 1% during the coronavirus pandemic, but it's edged up to 3% as of June. That's according to analysis by Allen, Brooks & Minor, a real estate appraisal firm in South Burlington. Brad Minor is a partner at the firm, and he says the easing is likely tied to the end of COVID-era eviction protections and rental aid, but it's also the result of new apartments coming online.
We identified 824 new apartments that were built in Chittenden County in 2024. It blew any other previous record out of the water.
Minor says some landlords of higher-priced rentals are considering making price cuts to fill vacancies. The co-founders of one of Vermont's most iconic brands have launched a campaign to, quote, free their ice cream company from its current owner. Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield of Ben & Jerry's wrote 2 open letters earlier this week relaying their frustrations with UK-based Unilever, which has owned the ice cream outfit for 25 years. VT Digger reports Cohen and Greenfield accuse Unilever of eroding the company's efforts at political messaging and action, considered by its founders as integral to Ben & Jerry's mission. Ben & Jerry's has been in and out of court with Unilever for years, and the open letter campaign is aimed at galvanizing public support. In a statement sent to VT Digger, Unilever wrote that Ben & Jerry's is, quote, not for sale. Vermont has been dealing with a shortage of veterinarians that work with horses for years now, and so have other parts of the country. Molly Witters is an equine veterinarian with the Vermont Large Animal Clinic in Milton. She told Vermont Edition yesterday a few parts of the state are well supplied with horse vets, but many others are not.
As a horse vet, you have to have someone on call all the time. And there are fewer and fewer people graduating who are kind of willing to or wanting to do that work. And so there's been a sea change as far as how to accommodate for that deficit.
The Association of Equine Practitioners says just over 1% of new veterinary graduates enter the field directly each year. It cites the profession's personal demands and lower starting salaries compared to other types of vet work as reasons. Coming up, a timber rattlesnake was spotted recently in Grand Isle, and Vermont Public's Howard Weiss-Tisman explains why that was an unexpected sighting for the endangered reptile. That's after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from SRH Law, believing that values and mission still matter. When you need good counsel for your values-based work, whether it's securing our energy future, building affordable and sustainable communities, or advancing a values-led economy, they're here to help you make a difference. SRHLaw.com. Making a difference is our practice.
Vermont has a small population of timber rattlesnakes in western Rutland County, but the endangered species is not found anywhere else in the state. So when a timber rattlesnake showed up in a backyard in Grand Isle this summer, it caught everyone by surprise. Vermont Public's Howard Weiss-Tisman has more.
Matt Thiel has been a Vermont game warden for 17 years, and he works in the islands and in the towns along the shores of Lake Champlain. And whether he's freeing a fox from a tangled soccer net or catching a bald eagle in distress, Thiel has the equipment he needs to protect and restrain whatever wild animal he encounters. But there aren't any venomous snakes in Grand Isle County, and so when a call came in mid-July to trap a rattlesnake that had shown up in a backyard, Thiel had to improvise. He tracked down a long-handled garbage grabber and headed to the scene.
It was one of those, I'd rather have this than nothing, and I'm not reaching for it with my bare hands.
Kim McFerrin lives in Grand Isle, and her brother's dog scared the snake up in the woods near her house. She knew that rattlesnakes did not live along the shores of Lake Champlain, but nonetheless...
It was a large black snake that was coiled and hissing, and it was rattling. I mean, it clearly had the rattle on its tail and was rattling.
The game warden was joined by a colleague who had his own improvised snake-catching equipment in the form of a fishing net and a beer cooler. And for the next 30 minutes, the two well-trained fish and wildlife game wardens bobbed and weaved, in and out of the bushes, learning as they went. Eventually, they managed to scoop the poisonous snake into the net. Vermont State herpetologist Luke Groff said the snake probably coiled up in a warm car or boat and hitched a ride and then slithered out when it got to Grand Isle. He says without knowing where it came from, he couldn't release it into the threatened community of timber rattlers in Rutland County. And as it turns out, it's not too easy to find someone to take a venomous wild snake off your hands.
I checked in with all of our neighboring states. I called zoos. I called nature centers. It took me a while to find placement for this animal.
Groff kept the snake in his office for 3 weeks. Eventually, he tracked down a professor at the University of Scranton who has a snake education program. The university's rattlesnake ambassador passed away recently, and so the Grand Isle Rattler has taken on the role. It's working with the professor to teach the people of central Pennsylvania about the habits and characteristics of the timber rattlesnake. Matt Thiel, the game warden, doesn't expect to come across another rattlesnake in Grand Isle County, but he says he's keeping his long-handled garbage grabber in his truck just to be safe. For Vermont Public, I'm Howard Weiss-Tisman.
And now it's time for our weekly check-in on news from the world of sports. Here they come down the home stretch. The Major League Baseball teams vying for wild cards and division titles are like horses at the Kentucky Derby, running practically neck and neck toward a likely photo finish to decide who will meet in the playoffs. Two of those horses represent the most storied rivalry in the sport and could not be any closer in the standings as they prepare for a head-to-head 3-game series at Fenway Park starting tonight. If you're a baseball fan, especially a Red Sox or a Yankees partisan, you couldn't ask for anything more exciting in a regular season showdown. The Sox and Yankees are in a virtual tie for the top wild card spot in the American League, pending the result of the Yankees game against the Detroit Tigers yesterday. Both teams were coming off losses, although the Yankees were licking their wounds a bit more after suffering back-to-back defeats to the Detroit Tigers by scores of 12-2 and 11-1, again before they played the series finale in the Bronx yesterday. Games 1 and 2 were actually tight affairs until the Yankee bullpen imploded in the late innings, and that's been emerging as an issue for the Bronx Bombers at the moment. The Red Sox recently took 2 out of 3 from the A's in Sacramento, the highlight being Game 2, in which rookie Connolly Early was called up to make an emergency start in place of the injured Dustin May and went on to tie a franchise record for the most strikeouts in a debut by a Red Sox pitcher, as the Southpaw recorded 11 Ks in that win. Fellow rookie lefty Peyton Tolley was not able to notch his first win of his career in Game 3 of the series, however, and he's shown some predictable freshman deficiencies since his electrifying debut at Fenway Park, in which he struck out 8 in a no decision. And we also learned in that Game 3 5-4 loss to the A's that Red Sox closer Aroldis Chapman is human after all. The nearly automatic lights-out flamethrower had not allowed even a single hit to any batter dating back to July 23rd. Chapman went the entire month of August and into the beginning week of September, facing 50 batters over that span, and yielded not one hit to any of them. That streak ended Wednesday when he came into the ninth inning of a tie game against the A's, and Shea Langoliers tagged him for a double, followed by a game-winning single off the bat of Lawrence Butler to deliver the A's that 5-4 win. Now, Sox fans probably shouldn't worry about Chapman losing his touch. I don't want those words to come back and haunt me, but even starting ace Garrett Crochet had a rough start a couple of weeks ago against the Guardians, in which he gave up 7 runs, including 3 homers, and he bounced back just fine in his next outing, striking out 10. Chapman will likely rebound the next time he's called upon to close out a game, and that opportunity could come as soon as tonight when he faces his former team at Fenway Park. It's notable, too, that Chapman faltered against the A's only when he was tasked with keeping a 4-4 game knotted up instead of securing a victory, and elite closers like him seem to rise to the occasion more often when they're trying to nail down wins rather than maintaining ties. In any case, it should be an electrified atmosphere at Fenway tonight, with Lucas Giolito starting for the Red Sox against Luis Gil for the Yankees. Meanwhile, things are getting a little unnerving for fans of the New York Mets, who, pending results from last night's game against the Philadelphia Phillies, are either reeling from a losing streak that's now reached 6 games or breathing a temporary sigh of relief at having snapped that skid. But either way, the Mets have been clobbered by the team that's pretty much wrapped up the NL East Division title in consecutive games before yesterday's series finale, and what was once a pretty comfortable 4-game lead for the Mets in their hopes of snagging that last available wild-card berth in the National League had been reduced to just a 2-game lead over the San Francisco Giants as of Thursday. The Mets had lost 3 in a row against the Phillies and by pretty wide margins in each game as they looked to avoid the ignominy of a 4-game sweep yesterday. Turning now to men's college soccer, the 13th ranked and defending Division I national champion UVM Catamounts will run against the 3rd-ranked Akron Zips at Virtue Field tomorrow. The Catamounts are still undefeated on this fledgling season with 3 wins and 3 ties after narrowly avoiding their first defeat of the year Tuesday against the Dartmouth Green. UVM trailed 3-1 in that one with just 15 minutes left in regulation before late goals by Philip Kuhn and Maximilian Kissel salvaged a 3-3 draw. In the WNBA, the slate of teams going to the upcoming playoffs were finally nailed down this week when Erica Wheeler of the Seattle Storm drained a go-ahead jumper with just 19 seconds left in regulation against the Golden State Valkyries to secure a 64-63 win and the 8th and final playoff berth for Seattle. And finally, some of the world's top bicyclists are set to compete in both the Grand Prix Cycliste de Quebec in the old capital of Quebec City. That race begins today, followed by Sunday's Grand Prix Cycliste de Montreal race. I had a chance to speak about the events with Joseph Lemaire, general manager of the Grand Prix Cyclistes events for both Montreal and Quebec. He told me there are 18 teams featuring more than 160 riders from all over the world competing in both races. I started by asking Lemaire to describe the length and scope of the race beginning at 11 a.m. today in Quebec City at the historic Plains of Abraham.
18 laps of 12 kilometers with a new circuit. So this is something that the rider will discover. And it's the riders from the Tour de France, because we will have 3 of the 4 riders at the general classification of the Tour de France 25. The new course start and finish line will be on the Plain of Abraham. The beautiful view on the last 500 meters for the race for all the public will be on this place, on the venue.
And what about in Montreal? When will that race start, and is it the same length? Is it also 18 laps? How does that one work?
In Montreal, it's a little bit different. We have only 17 laps of 12.3 kilometers, but the elevation gain is out of what we have in Quebec. Because we will have more than 4,500 meters of elevation gain. So for sure, the most difficult of the Tour, World Tour races here in Canada. And at the end, it's 209 kilometers. The start will be at 10:15 in the morning. And in the same as in Quebec City, we will have a fan zone for families and for fans of cycling. So everybody is welcome to these both events. That's what is fantastic. It's totally free for everybody. More than 200 kilometers. How long it is? Around 5 hours of riding for these champions.
And will the same riders be competing in both events, both Montreal and Quebec City?
Yes, absolutely. We take care of the 23 teams from Paris because most of the athletes live in Europe. So we take care from Paris to Paris. So of course everybody stay in the same hotel in Quebec. We move in Montreal on Saturday morning, and after that Yes, it will be the same athletes and the same riders from Montreal. Do not hesitate to cross the borders and come see us maybe in Quebec, in Montreal on Sunday.
That was Joseph Lemaire, General Manager of the Grand Prix Cyclists events for both Montreal and Quebec. And that's our weekly look at news from the world of sports. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Bob Kinzel, Carly Berlin, Jen Jarecki, and Michaela Lafrac. Today's episode was edited by Stephanie Colombini, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. Talk to you Monday.